Up next, Charity Dean returns as guest host and Authentically Detroit welcomes the leadership team of 98Forward, the largest Black-owned and woman-led public relations agency in the state of Michigan. But first, this week's hot takes from Bridge Detroit. Detroit Reparations Task Force hosts town halls with Black Audit Project, and Michigan lawmakers revive toll road debate. Keep it locked. Authentically Detroit starts after these messages.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Hey, y'all, it's Orlando. We just want to let you know that the views and opinions expressed during this podcast episode are those of the co-hosts and guests and not their sponsoring institutions. Now, let's start the show.
Thank you for listening in and supporting our efforts to build a platform of authentic voices for real people in the city of Detroit. We want you to like, rate, and subscribe to our podcast on our platforms. Orlando is out sick today, so we have our unofficial third host, Charity Dean, with us again. As promised this year, for Women's History Month, we are celebrating women in and around the city, making history in our own unique way. Normally behind the scenes, Georgella Muirhead, Marilyn Horn, and Antonice Strickland make up the leadership team at 98Forward, the largest Black-owned, woman-led public relations agency in the state of Michigan. This week, we're bringing them front and center as they prepare to celebrate 25 years in business by sharing 25 acts of kindness. Georgella, Marilyn, and Antonice, welcome to Authentically Detroit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
So it's a beautiful spring day today, even though it's still winter, but you know, spring hurries up in Michigan these days. How's the day finding you, Charity?
I am okay. I'm still remembering my friend Chef Max, who passed away last week, but I'm hanging in there.
So sad.
Yeah, it's very sad. I didn't have the pleasure of knowing him, but he touched so many lives that he's one of those people I wish I had met before in his short life. It's very sad, though. How about you, Marilyn, Georgella, and Antonice? How are you all doing?
Doing great.
Say, well, I'm getting better. How about that? Say this little tear, I guess, Microsoft tear in my rotator cuff has been, giving me the blues, but I'm hanging in there.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm sorry to hear about that.
Yeah, and I'm well, just moving and grooving around the city, doing the things that we do at 98Forward, so I'm well.
Well, I have to say, you guys are celebrating your 25th anniversary with a name change, and ECN is celebrating its 40th anniversary with a name change. And so today I was digging through our archives, and I came upon some documentation from my work in the 1990s.
That's awesome.
And I almost cried when I found it. I couldn't believe it. I'm going through these boxes trying to prepare for a film that we're creating about our history. And nice. I saw this and I thought all of this had been lost. It's interesting how past work means so much, and so much of us gets lost when we don't keep those materials with us. And I feel as though so much of my life, I've done things and I have to convince people I did it, or even remind myself, wait a minute, these big things happen, right?
Yep.
But today I come with receipts.
Yes. Period. Yes. Period.
Yes,
love
yes.
it.
So anyway, today we're going to start talking about the Detroit Reparations Task Force. Charity, you say this is your favorite topic. So the Detroit Reparations Task Force hosts town halls with the Black Audit Project. This is a story by Malachi Barrett. Detroit's Reparations Task Force and Black Audit Project this week are hosting a series of town halls to better understand how racial discrimination affects residents. The Black Audit Project was founded by Justin Hansford, a delegate to the United Nations and executive director of the Thurgood Marshall Civil Rights Center at Howard University. The Audit Project aims to measure the well-being of African descendant populations and has expanded since visiting 13 cities in 2022 for a presentation before a UN forum. Findings from this week's engagements will also be used by the Detroit Reparations Task Force to develop a report on historic discrimination against Black residents. The task force set a November 1 date to provide reparations policy recommendations to the Detroit City Council. 3 town hall sessions are scheduled for this week. Yesterday, March 11th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at the historic King Solomon Church at 6100 14th Street. Today, March 12th, from 5:30 to 7:30 at Aquivalon Village at 7701 Harper Avenue. And then on Wednesday, tomorrow, March 13th, from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Eat at Bert's at 2558 Brush Street. The task force in January authorized a partnership with Howard University and Columbia University as part of the African American Redress Network. It's also working with the University of Michigan to study policies, programs, and government decisions that disadvantaged Black Detroiters. Detroit's task force was assembled by the City Council in February 2023 at the direction of voters who passed the 2021 ballot initiative. It meets on the first Saturday of each month at alternating locations on east and west sides of Detroit. The task force next business meeting is scheduled for 2 p.m. April 4th at the Northwest Activity Center. Detroit is part of a national movement to study municipal reparations, which is distinct from long-term efforts to create a federal reparations commission. Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network, said local efforts have more potential to empower community members and create solutions with their input. Some Detroit residents have expressed frustration with the task force over a lack of public engagement. Pamela Dewberry last month told members that a lot of us are waiting to be included in this once-in-a-generation opportunity. The task force program manager, Emberly Vick, said public engagement is improving after her hiring earlier this year. The task force updated its website with a financial report, meeting calendar, and minutes from past meetings. Vick said residents could submit comments or send questions to reparations at reparations@detroitme.gov. She is monitoring the email account to collect insights from Detroiters. We will also share this email address on our website and on Facebook page. Michigan law. Anyway, so let me stop there and get some thoughts on that. I'm going to start with you because you have so many thoughts about the reparations task force, Charity.
Well, they've had 2 committees to quit. 2 committee members quit since its inception, and there's been a lot of frustration around it. Here's my thought. One, I think that we can become obsessed with studying our trauma, but there is no shortage of data that already exists. I mean, you can name any major consulting firm from McKinsey. You can talk about Goldman Sachs. The Kellogg Foundation put out a report in 2018 that studied the racial equity gap in the state of Michigan. There is not a shortage of information and statistics upon that talk about the impact of discrimination on Black people. We just got to do something. So that's how I feel about the task force. I feel like, I told this to Malachi recently, I feel like Detroit City Council is the reparations task force. So what are you doing today to combat what we already know to be true? So,
oh, wow. I can't disagree with any of those thoughts. Are there any other comments for you guys? What do you think before I weigh in?
You know, this conversation, I agree, seems to go on and on and on. Yes. But we never really get to any solution. Just a solution. It doesn't have to be a perfect solution.
That's right.
Just a start somewhere. Mm-hmm. And I think people will pay more attention to it because I think it becomes in the background because you figure nothing's ever going to happen. So if the solution is public housing and changing housing, or the solution is, I think we stay away from education because we're always there. Right. But the solution is business development or whatever the solution is. Agree that that's one thing that needs to be done. Doesn't include everything, but let's do one thing and get some movement going. And I think then people will be empowered to try to think, okay, what should the next step be? And you can look back and say, okay, you made some improvement. Now this is, if it's council or whatever, now what's the next step? But
I agree with George.
With that.
Yeah.
Also, I think to that point too, like it does get distracting if you're kind of like, oh well, nothing's ever really happening anyway. I'll just be involved and do something in this area, and just it doesn't really push the collective forward. And I also think like everybody wants to be the superhero rather than working collectively and being like the all-star team or something like that. And I think that hinders us sometimes too. Not just us as Black people, but that's who I can speak on behalf of. Yeah. But you know, we have a ton of great ideas, and I think if we can just kind of focus on what these solutions are and actually implement them and not go against each other on it, like we could win literally or make that change.
Definitely, I agree. If we all could come together and work for the good, for the one cause, and to make some things actually happen, I think we could get on the right road to helping the people that needs the help.
And we'll hop on.
I think that 50 years from now, there's going to be some black folks living in Detroit convening a reparations task force to discuss what's happening right now.
Absolutely.
First, stop the bleeding.
Yes.
Yeah. We act as though racism is something that used to happen, and racist public policy used to happen.
Right.
When we're still taking people's houses, we are still. You look at what's happening in downtown development or in Detroit development right now, and we have all of the metrics and all of the explanations why the lion's share of all of our public resources should go into a part of the city where most black people don't live, where most black businesses are not situated, and where most black developers don't function, and that's downtown. We can have all of the conversations in the world, and then we have study after study that the city produces at the same time we're talking about reparations, saying, oh, look, the city can ill afford not to keep on doing the same old stuff that we're doing. The reality is that if you look at the way the public purse is spent right now, we still need reparations.
And guess what? You can start right now in downtown Detroit. You want to talk about reparations when the District of Detroit was going through their CBO process, right? And we, as the Black Business Alliance, said, well, hey, what if you set aside a fund so that black businesses could afford to be in the district, right? So you can think about what are ways, because reparations is just about repairing harm, right? So it's not that deep. So if we already know that this is a black city, 80% black, and we know that things are happening, to your point, in this area, what can we do to provide advantage? This is, equity is not about everybody gets the same thing. It's about, man, we've done harm. Let's look at 375, right? Here we go. Another opportunity for reparations. And we're going to meet and talk about the color of the placard.
Who are the reparations for is another question of mine. Who got moved out? Who are their descendants? Who got moved out of Black Bottom? We know how to find them. It's not that difficult because there's a whole lot of people.
No, they said they
that's
can't
what I'm
find
saying
that
is that people can let people document who they are, and I was here. The reality is, instead of that, what they do is they convene meetings with the people who are currently living in that area, asking them what their priorities are. You can't talk about reparations and then do that. I would love studies. I love research and I love studies. Here's a study I'd like to see. I'd like to see a study that evaluated the wealth extraction from black families in the city of Detroit from 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005 until today. I would like to quantify that amount of money, and I would like to look at the impact of that wealth extraction on the functioning of the city right now and on the city's bottom line, because the reality is if you have 100,000 people losing their homes, then multiply that by the average cost of the home that was lost and then figure out who got those homes, and you're talking about wealth extraction. If you're talking about all of the predatory lending that did and does still take place in our community, have some conversations about that. If you want to talk about land contracts, have some conversations about that. Let's talk about business closures because of a lack of investment in things like the commercial corridors in most communities in the city of Detroit. But what we're not going to do, in my opinion, is have a serious conversation about public policy in 1930 and 1940 and 1950 and act like we have not continued to do the same thing under a new guise. Because how many families got displaced when Black Bottom was closed down? About 100,000. You had about 100,000 people who had their homes taken by tax foreclosure. How many people in the $600 million of overtaxation were overtaxed? I mean, let's do that math. And that math is not real hard because it's recent history and the documents are there for us to explore it. But instead, we have continually in this nation looked at racism through the rearview mirror, refusing to address what's here. And going to your point, Georgella, I think it's great. Let's do something. Let's fix housing for people who lost their housing. There's no way that under the leadership of this city and in the state and nation that anybody is going to come up with a program that does that for black people. Instead, what we have is housing that's being built for people who are not us in the city of Detroit using the public dime. If we stopped investing in and subsidizing housing downtown, all of these studios and one-bedroom apartments and all of this office space downtown that is already overbuilt, and we said, let's take those subsidy dollars and instead invest them in places, in neighborhoods where families are still living, if we had a single family housing policy that allowed us to rebuild neighborhoods that have been depleted physically.
But I would also say, too, Donna, but also, even when you talk about downtown, Black people belong downtown too. Yeah. So what are the ways in which, if we're thinking about the reparations lens, that we have opportunity for downtown to be just as Black as the neighborhoods, right? Yeah. What are the opportunities for us to build wealth and acquire land? How do we do that in a reparative way, right? Which means I have to take into account the harm.
When one person owns 90% of downtown, that ain't happening.
I was just about to say that.
I mean, that's just the truth. And the reality is we do belong downtown. I will never minimize that. I remember hanging out downtown.
I still live downtown.
In places that were owned by Black people, right? And I mean, I remember all kinds of places that we used to go to, and now there's no place like that. But what I'm saying is this. Most Black people in Detroit live in neighborhoods that have been attacked by these policies. Most of us need houses or places that accommodate more than one person. And so while I agree with you that there is no area of the city where we don't belong, I also believe that the places that we live in, that our parents owned in, that our grandparents owned in, that our neighbors owned in, those places deserve the same kind of respect from the city as downtown.
100%. And I'm always going to bring a small business perspective, because when people decide where they want to live, they want to live by things where there are thriving commercial corridors. And so, again, this is why I say the city council can be the reparations task force, because you can be looking at neighborhood economic development and saying, and I'm going to say it, until we get one, why is there not a sit-down restaurant on Grand River? Why? Who is in that office that is thinking about the neighbors in that way? In the same way that we think, where should we put a manufacturing plant? Who is thinking, where should we put a restaurant, a small, like a sit-down restaurant in this highly densely populated area?
There used to be an amazing restaurant there, Maria's. Anybody remember Maria's?
I do not, but
it's great.
I want to go there. Yeah. What was that, Italian food? See,
probably Maria. Though, I mean, these are all great ideas, but I bet you there are tons of people out there that are saying, that's not addressing my concern. I thought I was going to get a check. Or
we need both.
I was like, both of them. There are so many of these little roads you can do.
You're right.
If we can identify, if it's housing, that it doesn't matter, because my family goes back to, it wasn't just Black Bottom when they brought the freeways in, and then just
where on the freeway?
Well, we were on Joseph Campo. We had an apartment building on Joseph Campo there. Well, they came in, bought all those properties under renewal. Urban renewal. Did not pay the going rate for them, just took them. I mean, this has been going on for decades and decades. Well, shoot, if I'm waiting for you guys to come and help me get that income back, that's a lost cause. My thing is to calculate it, as you say, and it becomes to the good of everybody. And maybe we focus it not on housing or replacing that kind of housing, but on something else, downtown housing or whatever. But we have to agree that it's not going to solve all of our problems. Everybody's going to have a different way about how they see that this should take place. But I think we've got to get beyond the individual benefit and look at the more global benefit and find something that'll work.
Right. And when I ask people in the community what they think should be the biggest expenditure in our government, I almost always get housing.
Yeah.
Most people are housing insecure, and rents have gone up so high that people literally cannot afford to live in decent housing in the city of Detroit. That's the reason I always bring housing to the table, because we never had that issue in the past. And we have now become a city where 38,000 homes at least are in dangerously poor repair. We have a home repair fund, and people call in and they want us to fix up their homes, and we go into a home that has no roof, no walls, no indoor plumbing, no furnace. I don't even know why they call it a house. And people are living there, but it's my grandmother owned this property, and I'm not leaving, because if I leave, it's not going to exist anymore. I look at how people have just been stripped generationally over wealth. And I'm going to agree with you on one thing about urban renewal not just being downtown, because urban renewal, my great-great-grandmother Holly had a home on which is now I-75 and McNichols.
Oh, wow.
She owned that home.
Wow.
Came up north, built that home, owned that home, and that home was taken away, and she didn't really get paid very much at all. So I think that you're right.
And she probably back then couldn't move anywhere. So that's another, that calculus of like, not only am I taking this and giving you less than your fair share, you cannot freely move about
Yeah.
in any neighborhood.
Well, she
in
was
that
able to
area.
move into the 12th Street neighborhood,
12th Street,
Virginia
yep.
Park. And she was there putting out a fire on the roof, trying to stop a fire on the roof with a water hose, spraying water on the roof so that the house didn't catch fire. And most of the homes near her did, and she was able to keep her home somehow from catching fire. She was able to move, and then she had another loss, right? But I think you're right. So many people did
Like
not.
Rosedale, my story with my grandmother, she couldn't get, 70, it was the 70s, right? When she was the second black family in Rosedale Park. So that's what I'm saying, which is like there were definitely areas, even you're talking about 30s and 40s, but you could not
You
go
couldn't
anywhere.
just freely go. Oh, I'm gonna just visit
Just
this
anywhere
neighborhood
you
next.
wanted
Like,
to.
no.
You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I
Yeah.
think that in Rosedale Park, because then we have the history of neighborhood racism and
Yep.
neighborhood violence inside of neighborhoods.
Yes.
I worked at that Baskin Robbins on Grand River
Oh, yeah.
in 1978. It was one of my first jobs. And so I remember being chased home by people throwing bottles, saying,
Yeah.
"Get out of here," N-word, and being
Yep.
very afraid in North Rosedale
Yes.
when going through that neighborhood. We're talking about 1978. And so
Yes.
people talk about this being
Yep.
in, distant history, but this is in my history
Yes.
as a teenager. And I think, that matters. So
Yeah.
these are all, I think, what if there was a loan pool? What if there was a fund and people
Yes.
could tap into the fund based on their priorities? Maybe a nonprofit like mine could tap into the fund to build housing based on our priorities.
Yes.
Maybe charity could assist people with small business
Yes.
development based on those priorities,
Yes.
because there is no one size fits all. But here's
Yeah,
what
I
I
agree.
also believe: if the proposals we don't develop do not assist the least of us in terms of
Yes.
economics and social power, we haven't done enough. We've got to do stuff for returning citizens. We've got to do stuff for children who grew up in foster care because their parents were incarcerated. We've got to do stuff for so many people who've been harmed by not just the direct impact of racism, but also the cumulative impacts of those direct
Yes.
effects that still rebound across generations and have
sure.
impacted us all. It's a great thing. I think you're right, Charity, that we don't need more studies. We need plans.
We need action. And we need, we need a leadership that can say the word black.
Oh,
So, I mean, if you talk about reparations, let's just start by saying the word black. Let's not say minority. Let's say black when we mean black in this black city.
Yeah.
That's like one thing you could do today.
And you can
It
say
costs
black,
$0.
and you can say black and in there. You don't even have to say I'm brown after it.
Yeah,
right?
you don't. You guess what? You could just say black.
You can just say
Yeah.
black.
What?
Nobody has to say Chaldean and black.
And it's not. And that costs. You know how much it costs the city? $0.
Well, I think it costs the city because the city,
Free.
the
99.
leadership of the city has decided that race cannot matter. And when people say race doesn't matter, it usually
has
means
always
that
mattered.
when people
Yep.
try to make race matter, that means that they don't want to be held accountable for
Yep.
what they're doing. Okay, we don't have a leadership in this city that is really willing to do that. So I think that is a great first start. At any rate, let's move on to the next story if we have time before the next break. I think we have to take a break, and then we'll come back to Michigan lawmakers reviving the toll road debate.
All right.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit. By Detroiters, for Detroiters.
Have you always dreamed of being on the airwaves? Well, the Detroit Eastside Engaged Podcast Network, or DEEP for short, is here to make that dream a reality. Located inside the Stoudemire, the DEEP Network offers studio space and production staff to help get your podcast idea off the ground. Doesn't take a whole lot of work to get started. Just visit the Authentically Detroit page at ecn-detroit.org or call Sarah at 313-948-0344.
By Lauren Gibbons in Bridge Detroit. As the projected price for fixing Michigan's crumbling roads and bridges grows, lawmakers are reviving debates over charging drivers by the mile or adding tolls to some of the state's busiest highways. A state House Budget Committee over the past 2 weeks has invited testimony from advocates of alternative road funding options, including authors of a $1 billion toll road proposal. The state doesn't have the resources to fix what experts say is a nearly $4 billion annual gap, but the legislature could fund additional studies or pilot programs to help people get more comfortable with the idea of new revenue sources. Representative Ron G. Puri, a Canton Democrat, and I apologize if I pronounce the name incorrectly, who chairs the House Appropriations Transportation Subcommittee, said, with electric vehicles beginning to cut into gas tax revenues, industry experts estimate Michigan officials need to spend up to $3.9 billion more per year to fully fund the state's infrastructure needs, even when taking current spending and federal funding into account. For local roads and bridges alone, the County Road Association last month found the state is $2.4 billion short of fully funding maintenance and necessary repairs. Finding a long-term solution to pay for road and bridge repairs could be a crucial part of attracting and retaining Michigan residents as officials work to reverse stagnant population trends. Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Population Growth Council in December urged policymakers to consider new options, including vehicle miles traveled fees, tolling, and better utilization of public-private partnerships. The Transportation Budget Subcommittee this week poured over a revenue study that projects Michigan could generate up to $1 billion a year by setting up tolling on heavily traveled highways. Michigan currently has tolls in place in certain tunnels and bridges, but not on any roads. The study ordered by lawmakers in 2020 determined 14 of Michigan's 31 highways could theoretically support tolling, including large portions of interstates I-75, 94, and 96. Any tolling program would take years to get off the ground in Michigan. States have historically been prohibited from implementing tolls on highways that were built using federal money, although a series of new federal laws and pilot programs have relaxed the rules. So, what say you?
All right, I got two things. So, generally, we got to, got to be a pragmatist here. We need money in order to pay for the roads. The roads suck. Like, that's a statement. Can I say that word
yes.
here? Okay.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm very curious about the placement on I-75, I-94, I-96. Are they outside of Detroit? I think I could be open to something that is like, not incentive. A lot of our freeways, we're really incentivizing people to come into the city for work and go straight out to the suburbs. And so if those tolls like match that kind of logic, which is like you coming in, you're gonna pay to come in, then maybe I'm with it. What I always get nervous about is when you add any type of fee for people. If they don't pay, what's the consequence? You remember the driver responsibility fees and the ways in which we have criminalized poverty linked to driving, right? There are criminal penalties linked to this if you can afford to drive in Michigan, right? Whether you can afford the insurance or you can afford your license, whatever. So that is something that I'm, from an equity perspective, that they have to think about what's going to be the penalty. But if you got to pay for because you live in Canton and you want to come to Detroit, I might not be mad at it.
Except that there's so many black people now living in Canton.
I know.
And there's so many people who are working in Canton because they don't have jobs in Detroit. In fact, most black Detroiters are not the ones getting the jobs in Detroit than the ones, well, not even auto insurance, but most of us who live in the city are working outside of the city. Yeah. The people who are getting a lot of the new jobs that are the mayor's always touting are people from outside the city coming in. And so we need to think of the need to commute for work and the impact of that type of tolling on that. Others?
We really need to think about it. I remember that responsibility fee.
Oh, my God.
And I had a nephew that got caught up in that.
Oh,
and once you got on that track of horrible. Ticket after ticket, penalty after penalty, it was next to impossible to get out on your own. He was lucky I helped him out, but there were lots of people that were caught into that. So then they didn't have legitimate driver's licenses. Then, of course, the insurances weren't being paid. So that really became an unexpected or unintended result.
Or intended.
Right. I would... that would be my real concern with that. Although I must admit, when I'm out of state, I love driving on state roads that are nice.
Right, we don't like
a little bit more money, but I do think that the big thing is unintended
or intended.
Yeah, because if you don't think about, you can't do equity by accident.
Yes, because think about this. In Ferguson, Missouri, most of the people who lived in Ferguson, Missouri had some type of penalty or something they owed the state or
Yes.
the courts because of the intentional over-enforcement of rules in that space.
Yeah.
So we can't pretend as though predatory government does not depend on penalizing poor folks in order to pay the bills, because we're anti-tax, right? We're low taxes, and we think that being low taxes means that we have an attractive state, but in reality, the taxes that are charged usually pay for something. And I'm not talking about charging individuals, because under Snyder, you know, in addition to the Flint water crisis, he also reduced business taxes and increased taxes on middle-class people. And that has consequences. He says, okay, well, this is going to make Michigan a more business-friendly state, and everything we do is geared toward making Michigan more business-friendly. How about making those trucks that drive up and down our roads pay more? Not passenger vehicles. What about trucking vehicles all through our community that are really the entities that are tearing up our roads and causing all of that damage? Give them an increased price. I think we've got to figure out how to achieve equity, maintain service levels without burdening poor people disproportionately. And like you said, equity is always intentional, right?
It is.
And it can't be one size fits all.
And how the
actually,
rules
either.
are enforced.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because that became another penalty.
Yep.
You know, in Wayne County, you might have been fined driving, but if you went,
Baby,
you know,
go,
they were more, you know,
well, not
rigid.
even wait. Look, you go you go from Detroit to Livonia. You see what happened.
Livonia.
If you look at the
Sorry, Livonia, I love you. But
if you look at tax foreclosures, just look at tax foreclosures as one thing, right? And Dr. Bernadetta Tuahene has documented the fact that tax foreclosures are most common in majority black municipalities in Wayne County, which also coincidentally happen to be some of the poorest municipalities in Wayne County. And you take those tax foreclosures and you take all of the payment plan, you know, they have to have those fees for the payment plans, and you look at all of that income that the county gets together, and it's closing budget deficits. So in a county that has Livonia and Northville and Canton and all the Grosse Points, you are literally balancing the budget off of the poorest, blackest communities there, and then celebrating tax cuts. I think we have to be real about how government sort of hides its hand when it decides it's going to make places more business friendly or more, you know.
And I think it's important to also realize that government is a result of like who we select, right? So like it's not this like evil wizard in the back. It's like these are the folks that we vote for. These are the folks that we send to make these decisions on our behalf on a regular basis.
Or didn't vote for.
And this is it's part of why like our voice
so
matters,
important.
right? To be able to say, well, are you thinking about the consequence, this idea of criminalizing poverty, and the cost of driving. Like now you talk about a report, Donna, I would love to see that report where it's like, what is the cost of driving in Michigan? And I'm talking about auto insurance or the cost for a mistake, right?
Yeah.
I can't afford auto insurance, but I got to get to work.
Right.
So then you get pulled over and you get a ticket, but I can't afford that ticket, so I'm gonna have to pay interest on that ticket, and I'm gonna get it. And back then it's like a driver responsibility fee, and you got to pay that. And if you don't get that, so then they just like continue to pile. But I still got to go to work, so I still got to drive, and I get pulled over again. And so now I got a warrant for my arrest, and I get pulled over in Hazel Park because I was visiting my grandma. Now I'm in jail.
Yeah. Or how about this? I loaned my daughter's friend my car.
Yep.
He was driving my car in Roseville, got pulled over because of demerits on his driving record that had nothing to do with me. They took my license plate.
What?
And would not give it back.
What?
So for a couple of years, I'm driving with a paper plate because they are punishing me because somebody who was driving my car ended up getting a traffic ticket. And nobody can explain this to me. There's no court hearing I can go to have this fixed. It's just, and so, of course, you're talking about somebody who was underemployed at the time, didn't have the resources to pay off the fees. And so even the kindness of strangers ends up being a problem in our community. And I think when you start aggregating the data and the disproportionate impact of all of those things, again, we can have a reparations task force kind of conversation, but it should be a lens through which we evaluate public policy if we want to avoid future.
The time.
And you can't do that without saying black, can you, Chair?
Cannot.
All right.
Black. Start
So,
with B.
want to pivot, and this is a great conversation. I love talking to you
love
all.
this.
Women's History Month is so great, especially when you're talking to a couple of black women, a few black women who are just so aligned on a, social justice, framework, and a love for our city and a love for our people. It's always great to have these conversations. So I'm super excited to have a conversation about women who I admire. Actually, if I'm going to be honest, full disclosure, 98Forward provides the PR support and marketing support for Eastside Community Network.
Awesome. And they're members of the Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance.
Yes. So we are definitely friends. But anyway, formerly Bergmuirhead and Associates, 98Forward builds on the foundation established by its founders with a 25-year track record of successfully serving clients. While they serve clients globally, it's their agency's philosophy not to simply work from their offices in Detroit, but to be deeply ingrained in the communities where they do business in Detroit, Black Detroit. Founded with the simple goal of making enough money to pay the bills, they are now preparing.
I know that's right.
Listen,
Look.
As they say,
We're being
hallelujah.
honest. We are being honest.
That's going to be Rosa's new motto.
making enough money to pay the bills. And so they are now preparing to celebrate 25 years in business by giving
Actually, we
back.
just celebrated the 25 years.
Yeah.
We're going into
you just
26 now.
celebrated 26 and you're going to... All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I have lots of questions.
Founded in 2021, the Stoudemire is a membership-based community recreation and wellness center centrally located on the east side of Detroit. Membership in the Stoudemire is available on a sliding scale for up to $20 per year or 20 hours of volunteer time. The Stoudemire offers art, dance, and fitness classes, community meetings and events, resource fairs, pop-up events, the neighborhood tech hub, and more. Members who are residents of the east side have access to exclusive services in the Wellness Network. Join today and live well, play well, be well. Visit ecndetroit.org.
Bridge Detroit is your news and engagement platform that is telling the stories of Detroiters rooted by community priorities. Started in 2020 by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Stephen Henderson, the newsroom has already established its footing as the go-to source for hyper-local perspectives that ask the hard questions, brings accountability, and searches out real solutions. It's free to become a member of this award-winning news organization. Visit bridgedetroit.com today to sign up to receive the news delivered right to your inbox. Bridge Detroit, by Detroiters, for Detroiters.
All right, welcome back. We are once again joined by 98Forward with Charity Dean as co-host, and I'm so excited to talk about 98Forward. First of all, Bergmuirhead to 98Forward. No, Bergmuirhead to Van Dyke Horn to 98Forward.
Yes.
Talk about that journey.
It was bumpy.
First word out the gate.
Speaking of roads.
There we go. Right.
But a lot of it was very traditional. Bob decided he wanted to retire and maybe, push the business over before I did. So they were bringing me kicking and screaming. I'm not sure I want to go. But we thought we had a really good team in place. Marilyn had been with the agency for a number of years. She was one of the longest serving, 14 probably.
Yeah.
And but what we really loved about her is she always felt a part of the agency. She never, how some people say, well, I just work here. That was never Marilyn. If there was a problem, it was a universal problem. And we appreciated that. And at the time, there was another young man who also worked for us that we saw potential in. And so they came up with the plan, well, why don't we buy you out? And you can stay around and and they'd take over the workload and everything was fine. And during that time, I actually did decide to retire. It was right before the pandemic, and we went to the pandemic. I'm sitting there, watching my Asian movies. I'm a real Asian movie person, kind of thing, enjoying it. And then what you don't expect to happen is to get a call, and the call says, my partner resigned. How do you resign from a business you own?
Oh, you asking me that? I ain't gonna tell my story.
Oh my
The partner resigned.
It's a safe space.
Okay, Donna.
And when you talk about, when a crisis comes, you have two choices. You can just accept
That's
what
right.
people are expecting to happen.
Come on.
And that process really was to drive Marilyn out of business.
Yep.
Or you can come up with an action plan.
That's right.
So he resigned on Friday, and in Monday's cranes, it said that I had returned as CEO, Marilyn had taken over the company, and that we were moving forward.
Period. And that's how you do it.
Yes.
You know, you decide if you're going to take it
Literally.
or you're not going to take
Yeah.
it. And to your point, there were people in our industry that weren't betting on us. And that challenge just really, really made it more important. Antonice came on during that challenge.
Hey, Sor.
Yes, hey, so that was really what brought me. Honestly, I'm like,
Right.
I have to be a part of this and support this and them and this vision and foundation.
Right.
So.
And then the other underlying measure of this is that, you know, Jeff Lambert came in and supported us, and he helped us to get through. You know, we formed an alliance, and we were able to get through a lot of that bumpy road
Yeah.
that had to go down.
So I read about it in the paper, and I've worked with Georgella a long time ago, worked with you more recently, and I read that in the paper, and I just felt a sense of outrage. Honestly, I felt personally hurt. Not because I knew some of the people involved, and I was not necessarily always a fan of all of them, but to know that people are actually out there trying to take business from black women, and we do so much as women. To have people try to erase us and take us away and devalue us is always upsetting. And then to have any black woman associated with that just felt wrong, and I'm just being open with you. I'm like, wait a minute, are you serious? Because I could never do that, and can't really respect the decision that people make to do something like that that undercuts our value. And so I was one thing, I was really happy and relieved that you were together, to be honest with you. I was relieved that you had come together and done this, and that you were going to grow the organization and grow your company. And if I'm going to be quite frank, I had made a decision not to work with 98, not to work with Van Dyke Horn, because I had referred Van Dyke Horn to one of my colleagues in a project I was working in, and I had been sabotaged so badly by one of the people who participated in taking your business away.
Yes.
Okay? And I just was like, I felt burned, because here I am cheering on this organization and this one individual working there. And so that let me know it was not a reflection of you. And also that I would be safe bringing you on to work with you. So can you talk about how people responded? Were there other people who sometimes felt like, wait a minute, some things happened prior to this change that we weren't comfortable with?
I had very few people that supported me. Very, very few. I had people to even come up to me and say, well, why are you doing this? What is your goal? My goal is to put my voice out here, because I had been wrong. I hadn't did anything. And so as we grew, and as I called Georgella, I had my real soft voice on. I said, Georgella, I need you. And she stepped up to the task.
Yeah.
And it's been a phenomenal ride, since that time. But yeah.
But I don't think that we get enough credit as being black business women.
Come on.
Yes.
And so the thought was, you go in a corner and you cry, or you throw up your hands or whatever. No, you put together a strategic plan. All of the decisions we made specifically to make a certain statement. We had to come out right after before it got into the street, and make our clients know we had a plan to continue. The alliance, Lambert, was very strategic. When you start talking to big companies, you have to be strategic.
That's exactly
And you
right.
have to know what you're looking to get out of it. At the time we made this alliance, it was very important that people realized that there was support and that we could service our clients. And until they believed that entirely from from what we were doing, we had to figure out how to make that work. And all that time, we were building the agency, rebuilding the agency.
Yes.
And then came the important part. we needed a new name.
Yeah.
Yes.
The name we had could not work anymore.
No.
So, and I argued this, because everybody, and I was that way too. You want your name on something. If you're building it, you want your name on something. But I think Marilyn and I both had learned that doesn't necessarily work if you want your business to continue seamlessly. So that's one of the reasons we went to totally different name.
Yeah.
So what is the meaning of 98 Forward?
Well,
Oh, did
wanna
y'all
talk
just
about
look at me?
Yeah.
Oh.
You were part of this.
There we go. No, and it was actually really cool to kind of be a part of that whole process of the renaming, rebranding, especially as a new person to the team, and really kind of bringing some of that insight. But basically, 98 Forward, we were founded in 1998 by, Georgella Muirhead and Bob Berg. But just that intensity and understanding that we will continue to move forward no matter what is going on, no matter what happens to us. Like, this is not going anywhere. And 98 Forward really is just kind of embodies that for the agency. And we're going to do excellent and amazing work for our clients continuously and in the future.
So I have a question for you. One, unlike Donna, I didn't realize the story.
You were over there like, wait a minute.
And Antonice and knew that the name changed and that you were members of the Black Business Alliance. That was it. I got to read the article. But I will tell you this, hearing this from the perspective of the Black Business Alliance that absolutely went through very trying times and bullying when we went to launch. To hear you guys, your story, and how you've moved forward, there are people listening right now that are experiencing, corporate bullying, whatever you want to call it, because they're trying to do something different.
Yep.
What is your advice to them? How do you,
I started my career in government, and I worked for the cities of Ann Arbor, East Lansing, Southfield, and then I worked for Mayor Young in the city of Detroit. And so I was blessed at 30-some years old to run a 32-team communications department. And so we did literally everything you do in a PR agency. And we just did it for all of the departments. But one of the things I learned is that if you're blessed to be at the table, then you have a responsibility to speak up. And I had someone behind me that supported that. I tell you, I'd come into the mayor's office, I'm just woo-hooing, what's wrong? This isn't fair to Detroiters. This isn't, I'd be so incensed about things. But that passion is important. And so you learn from that, and I tried to bring that to the agency and to all the young women that have worked with me and for me, is that you just don't have to be sitting there taking notes and not paying attention. If there's something you feel strongly about, you need to get out and speak about that. And so one of the things we did with the agency is we went back to our roots. We really went back to, we just don't want to be in the city of Detroit in an office somewhere. We wanted to work on projects and work to make sure that residents in Detroit and in the region understood whatever it was that we were trying to explain to them, no matter what challenges they brought to the table. Be it literacy, language, whatever the case is, they needed to hear the same information and be able to make choices about their lives like everybody else. So I think it's that passion.
I think the passion is super important. I really like what Charity said. It's not just when you're starting a business. As women leaders, Black women leaders, we face challenges. Let's be really honest. I happen to work for an organization with an outstanding board. The organization that I worked for before this organization, directly before this organization, was not outstanding. Okay? I was bullied. I was made to feel inadequate. I was constantly undercut. I had board meetings, members writing each other's notes during board meetings and laughing as I'm speaking, and always finding a way, even when I had victory, to turn my victory into failure. They just didn't like me. And it was not a good fit. And sometimes you just have to find your home. And when you find your home, my advice to people is find your home. Don't sit there and take that kind of stuff. The other thing I get from what you're saying, Georgella, is you got to play it forward. That's one of the reasons I love 98 Forward, because you got to play it forward. At the very beginning of my career, there were people who stood for me, women who stood for me, and I try to stand there for young people every day, understanding I used to be young. And, you know, first of all, young people have more energy and they have more, you know, courage in some ways, you know, then as you get older, you start wanting to be a little bit more cautious about life, right? You might slip and fall. But young people have the kind of energy. And so I think it's really creating the kind of environment where we can all work together and bring our respective gifts to the table. So I really admire, because it's kind of a generational. What I see here in this display of womanhood is you're not all the same age.
No.
You kind of represent different periods of time. And so I'm excited by that. Can you speak to some of your victories and what's happened since you came together and you renamed yourself? Because I think you've had a few, haven't you? I mean, you were not Michigan's largest Black woman-owned PR agency when you first formed, and you are now. Talk about that.
Well, they had become Michigan's largest PR agency.
No, I'm saying
Minority.
It was minority.
Minority,
I'm gonna say
one
black.
Black woman-owned PR agency.
We'll talk
Didn't I
about
when
tell
you
y'all to
first
stay black?
formed.
We are now, though. Yeah.
Oh, I see.
I think we are very competitive.
Yeah.
We win, I think, more than our fair share of proposals. And we win them because we don't do cookie cutter work. We sit around the table, we figure out what'll make this unique, what'll make it different, what'll make it bigger, what'll make it better.
Right.
You know, because I feel very strongly about this. Yes, we are a Black woman-owned agency, but more than that, we're a darn good PR agency.
Well,
Yes, we
absolutely.
are.
And
Gotta
we're
Period.
competitive with anybody out there.
Yeah.
So we go in with that attitude. How can we do it better? And that has played for us. I think we have not only stabilized, we've grown.
Yes.
We
And
have
we're
grown.
continuing to grow. And people are finding us. They believe in
You can
what
Google
we
us now
stand
and see
for.
us.
And the phone keeps ringing.
Yes.
Well, you know,
And that, that's business, it's paying those bills. But we believe there's more that can be done, and I think everybody here feels the same way.
Yeah.
I don't feel that any importance or any tools I have, I just keep them to myself and can't
sure.
share them.
For sure.
I am most satisfied when other women, particularly, and Black women especially, are doing great things. So there are people all over the city that have worked for the Berg Muirheads, 98Forwards of the world, and they're doing outstanding work. They're leading organizations.
Yes.
That's what is most important.
Yeah.
Not that you just stay at the agency for your entire career,
Right.
but that when you leave, you're able to work for wherever you go and do outstanding work.
That's one of my mottos, that when you leave here, you should leave here better
Better
than
than
you
when you
came.
came,
That's
yes.
Okay, if
That's
you don't leave
exactly
here
right.
better than you came, and I certainly want to keep every great person who works for me with me, but understand that everybody needs to fly away at some point and find their own perch. And I think we need to celebrate people who leave just like we do when they're there.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about how the year before last,
I did
we were
want to.
at.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go on.
No, I just wanted to add something. I was taking some quick notes because I wanted to keep them in my brain of a couple of things that were said. And I love that you said it was all different generations up here, because this is what also inspired me to come and work here. I knew what kind of legacy was already here and the mentorship that I would hopefully gain as well. But, the ideas that we can bring and make this agency better. But to answer Charity's question about advice, I would say trusting your gut and finding people that are in alignment, which also aligns with you about finding your home. I've worked at a couple of different agencies. I've worked in other states. I've worked across the country. And I genuinely felt like when I had my interview with Georgella and Marilyn, that I found a home.
Yeah.
I got to find a place where I could work with. I might feel emotional today too, but I got emotional during my interview because we do have different stripes that we navigate, not even just as Black professionals, but Black female professionals, Black women. And I've seen a lot, navigated a lot. Even I've been blessed to experience a lot of things even at a younger age in my career. But literally, there were reasons why I didn't come and work at the agency in the first place. I had been asked to come work here before.
You mean before it became 98
Before
Forward?
it became 98 Forward.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Before. And there were real reasons why I did not. And so everything is timing, but I think trusting your gut, I had to trust myself that, okay, maybe it's time now. And I didn't even know all this stuff was happening.
Yeah.
At all. I literally got interviewed and I was like, okay, and I didn't hear anything for weeks. And I'm like, what's going on? So, everything happens for a reason, but I had to trust myself and trust my gut gut and really seek out and find alignment with, what I hope to be a part of. And really genuinely feel like I was able to find that. It'll be them bumps in the road still,
Yeah,
but like,
sure.
I just wanted to bring that up because that's a part of that mentorship. That's a part of that, finding other women and lifting as you climb, which is a mantra that I like to use. But I think it's the same as what you're saying. If you have the door that's open, or you were able to get through the door, it's your job to, keep it open, hold it open, and bring the other ones up. And I feel blessed that I'm able to be a part of this door that was opened already.
So, when we when you formed, we had been working with another group for some time. We sort of stayed with them, and then I was in Mackinac doing an Authentically Detroit interviews in Mackinac, and so Orlando had scheduled all the interviews. We got them scheduled online, and every person we were interviewing was either represented by Antonice or Jeremy. And I'm like, well, who's representing me?
You said that after the interview, I think.
I was just so blown away. I came back and I was like, I didn't even know that you could have people up there representing you. And yes, I am going to Mackinac this year, so play it forward.
Your team will be there. Your team will be there.
Yes, but no, it was so amazing to see how you were supporting your folks up there. And there's no other group of people I saw being supported in that way by a PR agency. Now, I have seen people represented by lobbyists, but can you talk about the distinction and why you were providing that kind of support at Mackinac?
Well, we have clients and black women executives, for example, that we represent their companies, but we realize that it's very challenging being a black woman executive. And especially if you want to get in certain space. And I'm old school, so I had people that were behind me and saying, you look too young. If you want to look older, wear pearls. So. And
you're still wearing them.
And I'm still wearing them.
I have on my pearls.
I said the same thing. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't even bring them.
But they're just special little nuggets that you can help black executives understand and elevate their role from this understanding. I would tease them all the time. A lot of executives, some executives can go around with green hair. You can't. that isn't, let's just be honest here. If this is the space you want to be in up in Mackinac and you want to be giving the big speeches and whatever, they're expecting a certain polish, a certain look. We can help you do that. We will not change you from the black woman you are, but we will provide some information to make sure that when you're standing there giving that speech, people are focused on what you're saying and not how you're fitting in.
So y'all, when you see me looking better, now you know.
I'm so funny. Oh my goodness. But to that point, being up at Mackinac, I think even with Georgella's point of like helping you kind of be prepared there, but really making sure that people know about it. Like we're not bulldogs, but I'm gonna be in every media person's face. Like this is what we're talking about. And this is what I would love to make sure I have my client on and things of that nature. But if we're not there to represent,
basically.
For our clients, we have a war room.
Don't everybody sign up with them right now.
Right. Because we got a team that'll be in Detroit too that's helping kind of like make sure things are done.
I'm just saying that.
We work it both ways.
I don't mean it like that. What I mean is I don't want all the competition for your war room, right? Because when you are up at Mackinac, Charity, you've been to Mackinac, that is a daunting experience, right? Because having conversations and some people look like they want to duck and dodge and whatever. And it took me years to realize how to successfully Mackinac.
Yes.
We can turn that into a verb, right?
Successfully Mackinac.
I successly Mackinac when I went up there and I wanted nothing from anybody other than conversation. When I was going there trying to network and, build relationships, it never worked for me because I look at people at Mackinac right now and they all look hungry. And it's like I can tell which people are going to get paid and which ones aren't. If you look hungry, you're not getting fed up here because this is the kind of place where when you look hungry, people hide. But
you can smell it.
So you can smell that desperation.
Somebody's
talking to you and looking beyond you. Who's somebody more important for me to talk to?
Right.
There's got to be good seeing you, and they look over you. So I think it's important that you provide that kind of guidance. Is there any other kind of guidance you have that you typically provide your clients to help make them more successful in this space?
And can I add on to that? And then also, what other services do you provide, right? As a PR agency, what are the other things that are in your toolkit?
So we're a full service agency. So we don't just do public relations. We'll do executive positioning, social media and marketing, events. Georgella loves events. I love events too, but Georgella loves events. But anything from video production to, speech writing, anything under that communications umbrella, if you were to look at all the little droplets that come down or off from that, we do all of that.
So I have can I have a follow-up question?
Okay.
Okay. So y'all know I represent the Black Business Alliance. We have 1,500 members. One of the things that most of our members need is marketing, but most small businesses cannot afford a firm, right? They cannot afford. Have you guys cracked the code yet? I'm looking for someone, and when I tell you, every time I meet with somebody, I'm like, hey, I have members that need this. Now, some of it, I always tell our members, and we do this even in line, some stuff you cannot outsource because it's you. Yeah. You know what you're doing today, you know what you're doing tomorrow. Exactly. But there's coaching. There might be some ways that small businesses can access. Have you guys thought about how you would serve small business?
We haven't thought about it, but I'm thinking about it now. I mean, there, just off the top of my head, there's seminar, workshop kind of things you can do, where there might be one-on-one sessions that we're a profit organizations, and we're always looking to make a profit, but still, there are ways that you can more provided for a larger audience.
You can charge for a class that might be more affordable than a retainer.
Exactly. And it might have 2 or 3 different segments that we talk about.
Like even if you did a Mackinac prep, y'all talking about Mackinac, do a Mackinac prep class. Like, are you ready for Mackinac?
That's one of the things I was getting at, because I'm wondering what other advice you have for how Black women can interface in these spaces. I know that there's so many challenges. You go in a room, and the first thing you have to do is convince people you belong in the room. Aside from wardrobe, what do you do to convince people of that?
I think it's preparation, too.
It is preparation. And it depends. We've worked with clients where they want to make a very business-oriented, strong speech, but they want to bring their own personality into it. And so we listen to their ideas. We might help them draft the speech. But one of the things we do is we bring a different ear to it. I had one client in particular. She had an experience, and Charity, you probably are like, oh my God, where she was helping a tier 1 company resolve an issue. They picked up the solution, used it until it got past their crisis, and then when it was time to give out the next set of contracts, they got pushed out because they were at their quota. They had their minority spend quota.
You're right. My skin
moving. That's a tough one. But it was a story that she wanted people to hear.
Yeah.
So we we had the usual stuff, in there. And then rather than tell the story just as a story, we broke it up.
Yeah, for sure.
So I said, why don't you tell the success part up front? We did this, we had this wonderful thing, blah, 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 da, 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 everything was wonderful. She went through her whole speech and she says, oh, but let me go back to, where I started. And when she explained what had happened, the room was quiet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this was at Mackinac.
Yeah.
And so what we do is you have the content, you may have all the tools you need, but maybe they just need to be tweaked a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe you need the screwdriver before the hammer, or, that kind of thing. So we work one-on-one with all of those. But you still can have a good speech, but you also have to make sure that when you give that speech, people accept who you are and that you fit the norm.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you look like you're ready. You can still have your personality, but you look like you're in charge. We have CEOs that look like they're employees, and it's fine if you want to, be that kind of cohesiveness with your staff, but you can't do that if you want to be the boss.
Especially if you're a Black woman. Like a white man can show up any kind of way, but as a Black woman, you don't have, and most Black men don't have the privilege either. So we're going to have to start wrapping this up. This has been an amazing conversation. I really wish we could continue this longer, but I want to talk about those 25 acts of kindness. What is that?
Oh, 25 acts of kindness. And see, one thing about me, I have to put full disclosure, I'm a budgeter, kind of cheap on some things. And we went out and visited several venues.
We did.
And I just could not see spending that type of money to have a party. So I'm like, nope, we got to come up with something else. So I came up with the 25 acts of kindness based on our 25 years.
I love it.
And then wanting to give back in our community. And that's what we did. I mean, we packed boxes at Focus Hope. We went to the Veterans Center. We did that. We bought coats for 5 organizations.
Yeah.
So it's those kind of things. We pitched in and helped DPS CD, with their homecoming. We just did a lot of things that what we felt would impact the city. And I am so passionate about kids. We've always been passionate about kids. We had half the office full of presents and things.
Toys, clothes, all the things, literally.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
And
So
spent hours doing it. It wasn't just something that we mouthed.
Right.
We actually put our energy and our time behind it.
Yeah.
right. And then the other thing, which was fascinating, I just didn't celebrate us being in the community. I took the staff out for a day. We went to a baseball game. We go to dinner. Those type, because without them, we couldn't be the type of agency that we are.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I really admire the work that you guys have done.
you.
I really appreciate the work that you are doing for us.
Yeah.
You have done a lot to really even begin. Even though our, working together has not been that long, I can already see the difference in many ways. So I appreciate you and want to thank you for coming on today.
Thank you for having us.
Now
Yes,
is the time for, I think I'm supposed to close out this session by saying that if you have ideas, let me see, where is it? If you have topics that you want to discuss on Authentically Detroit, you can hit us up on our socials at Authentically Detroit on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Or you can email us at authenticallydetroit@gmail.com. Now it's time for shout-outs. Charity, got any shout-outs?
I do. So I'm here celebrating with you guys. It's actually the Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance 3rd anniversary on Thursday.
Yay.
So I'm shouting out the Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance, and we might also have a new name. I don't know.
Stay tuned.
So shout out to all of members of the Metro Detroit Black Business Alliance.
All right. Marilyn?
Yep, I'll
Any
give a
shout-outs?
shout out to my 98Forward team, looking and building better here as we begin to turn 26 years old next month. So let's get ready for a fun ride.
All right.
I give a shout out to Sam Logan. We at 98Forward, we recognize some of the outstanding Black communicators that we stand on the shoulders of. And Sam was always a good friend. And in fact, we got our first press for Berg Muirhead and Associates with the Michigan Chronicle and Sam Logan. So that's my shout out.
Awesome.
Oh, okay. Other than shouting out like my family, hey y'all, I would love to shout out Edgar Brookins, Michael Dutton, and Lydia Sermons. They were the people that foundationally helped me get where I am. They were my DC mentors and foundation and everything of that nature, where I'm able to kind of do this great work. So I would love to give a shout out to them. And actually, Mr. Brookins passed away about 2 years ago. So rest in peace to Mr. Edgar Brookins.
Yes, and let's not forget dear old Bob Berg.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
my
yes.
goodness,
Thank you,
yes.
Mr. Berg.
And speaking of founders, as I mentioned, I was going through archives today and just remembering what it was like to be 30 years old, coming to work at the Warren County Development Coalition in 1993. And there was a woman who gave a chance to me and handed me a book and said, I want you to bring this program to life. And then trusted me to do that and create so much more over the years. And her name is Maggie DeSantis, the founder of Eastside Community Network. So I want to shout her out for all of the faith that she invested in me. She's still connected to us. And I have the story I told at our partnership luncheon, which I tell all of the time because I hope women hear this. When I was pregnant with my 3rd child, I was on bed rest from 5 months on because I had preeclampsia. While on bed rest, Maggie called me up, and I had a fully paid maternity leave until I came back to work in September. Maggie promoted me to Deputy Director for Programs and gave me a $12,000 raise in 1995. And I will never forget
That's awesome.
what that means. If any woman out here does not understand what it's like to not only have your maternity leave paid for, but know you're coming back to a better job, making more money because you were so missed in your absence that they decided they were going to reward you like that. And I, right now, if people... I believe in fully paid maternity leaves. We have enough to worry about anyway. So, Maggie, you are my shout out for today.
I love you, Maggie.
Yes. So, I want to thank you all for listening, and hopefully you'll tune in next week when you catch the wave. Thank you.